Hello, my name is Jack Ducard. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you. I am starting a men's support group called Sentinel Circle, which to me means men watching out for one another. The issue that I have found in my time in the manosphere is that we only talk about the individual. We don't talk about the group, about men as a whole, as a collective. And I know collective is a loaded word, but please hear me out. I feel that we're stuck in this whirlpool of wanting to better ourselves, to improve ourselves, to enrichen ourselves with hustle culture and with game. We forget that there are others who are struggling, who need help, even if it's just an ear to listen to or hand up. And look around you. We got men who are destroying themselves through drugs like fentanyl, who are living on the streets. I mean, many by choice, yes, but many who hide. They live in their cars. They go to the gym just to shower. They have nowhere to go. Nobody wants to talk about this. They only focus on selling their courses and gatekeeping through money, which eventually I will have to do, but it wouldn't be something that enriches me. It's only a filter to bring up rather than allowing people to bring us down. Sentinel Circle is by men for men. And my plan, my hope, is to create a place where men, no matter what circumstance they may find themselves in, no matter where they're from, it's a place where they're welcome. A place where they're welcome with open arms. A place that we could all call home. To get started, I'd like to talk a bit about myself. And the initial idea of Sentinel Circle was similar to AA or NA without the 12 steps. I don't believe in the 12 steps. Even though there are certain things that help. So, a bit about me. I'm Jack, as I said in the intro. I was born in 1990 on the West Coast. I won't get into too extravagant detail because A, this isn't about me, and B is I don't want to lose my life, the life that I worked hard to build, because someone feels that men should not have a place to be. So I will keep it vague, but I will include important details as needed. My parents divorced when I was 6, and my mother took me from the West Coast to the East Coast to live with family until she got on her feet. I lived with her until I was about 10, and because of a medical condition that she had, she couldn't take care of us anymore. So she moved me back in with my father on the West Coast. Growing up, my education, because we moved around a lot, my education was very mixed. I missed a lot of lessons because I was told that you would learn it next year, and then I go to the next school and they said that you should have learned it a year previous. Because of that, certain things like writing in cursive, I simply struggle with. Currently, I'm trying to learn that because I feel handwriting is an important skill to have. Men tend to have chicken scratch for handwriting, and I feel that that's not good. It's not proper. But once I moved into my father's care, I stayed in pretty much the same school until my senior year. My senior year, my father managed to buy a house. We were renting before at the time because that's just what happened. It's nobody's fault. But he managed to buy a house, and I went to a new school for my senior year of high school, and I met an ex-girlfriend there. At the time, I wasn't popular in school, and I've heard these stories before many times. But moving to this new school, I was treated a little differently. People were more receptive to talk to me, to get to know me, which in hindsight was probably more out of kindness rather than genuineness. But it gave me a little bit more self-confidence, and that confidence, I guess, is what allowed me to, or so I thought, attract someone. This girl and I started dating in senior year, and we graduated. Apologies for the phone. I graduated at 17, and I left home because I did not want to be home. I wanted to make it on my own. But circumstances beyond my control forced me to come back home. While I was home, I found out, and this is going to date me, but on MySpace, my ex had some comments under some posts from a man. And it was a little odd to me. So through investigation, I found out that she was having an affair, and later on I would find out that she was actually having an affair with 6 different guys at the same time. One of which happened to be a police officer who was 50 years old, married, and a father of 2. This comment, I confronted her on it, though. And when I confronted her, she hung up on me. It was over the phone. Called her repeatedly because I wanted an answer. I wanted to know. Later on that night, 2 sheriff's officers wound up on my front doorstep. They issued me a court summons and what is known as a stalking protective order. It's similar to a like a restraining order, but the main difference is it's called a no contact order, meaning you just simply don't have a contact with this individual. Not, you can't be within a certain distance. The punishment of which the first time is a misdemeanor, and any subsequent times, if you're convicted on that misdemeanor, is a felony. This is relevant later. I went to court, and I pled not guilty on the initial charges. It was harassment. Charges in that case were dismissed. But the issue that I ran into was the stalking protective order was a separate situation. It's considered civil, not criminal. So I had to go to court for that too, and Since it was civil, well, neither of us had an attorney. It's just myself, my ex, and the judge. My ex called up this police officer she was with as a witness. The two of them basically stated that there was no relationship. I was stalking her. She, during her senior year of high school, would run away from me and hide in his office. Various things like that. I countered by showing the court the love letters that she wrote me in an effort to prove that she was lying. But in hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. The court, the judge, she sided with my ex and placed the stalking order and said basically that it didn't matter if we had a relationship or not, that if anything, the relationship made it more imperative that the court and the system would to protect her from. That day hurt. It still stings to this day. So I decided to leave the area again to try to make something of myself. But in my absence, I didn't know that this happened at the time, but it happened. I found out about it later. My ex apparently claimed someone, I don't know who, I have an idea of who, but I don't know who, submitted a police report online, which the fact that you can submit a police report online is questionable. I don't know why that's a thing, but it is. They submitted a police report saying that my ex was being beaten by the man she was seeing off of MySpace. The sheriff's department for my community didn't want to deal with it, so they gave it over to the police department, the local police department, the one that the cop that my ex was involved with worked for. And another officer went out, asked her. And my ex said, oh, it had to have been Jack. That one statement started a criminal investigation against me. The only proof that they really had was two keys here. One is they claimed that the IP information was linked to the IP at my house. Well, the way that they went about the search warrant is they did not subpoena the service provider for the IP. They service the IP, or they service the ISP for the IP of my address. They didn't subpoena for the address associated with it. So it was kind of backwards the way they did it. Basically, they said, what is the IP associated with this customer, rather than who's the customer associated with this IP. And of course, the IP that they had and the IP that they got matched. Even though I never saw the evidence to prove that. My attorney never saw the evidence to prove that. And it was never provided to us during discovery. All we saw was the search warrant and what came back with the service provider. So, that was used as the basis to get an arrest warrant out. At the time, I was in the Northeast, well, around the Great Lakes area. And I found out about the arrest warrant, and the opportunity that I had dried up on me, so I came home. As soon as I got home, I had an attorney on retainer, and I went to court to answer for the arrest warrant. The judge basically asked why did I not show up initially, and I said, well, I was out of state. He understood and removed the arrest warrant. I had my mugshot taken, fingerprints, walked out of the court that day. I found out because these crimes were committed online that the FBI was involved. So, against my better judgment, and at the urging of individuals who are too trusting of law enforcement, because they saw shows like Leave It to Beaver, I was urged to go talk to the FBI. And I did. The FBI requested that I voluntarily give up my phone for evidence. I did. Again, against my better judgment. About a month later, the local police department contacted me. I gotta step back. The next day from the interview, the local police department got a warrant to search my phone. And then about a month later, they contacted me and they gave me this story about how they didn't find anything and they wanted to give me back my phone. Well, that was a lie. I was arrested and I spent 8 weeks in county lockup. 8 long weeks. While I was in county lockup, I found out that my ex and the officer she was living with, the 50-year-old father of two of them were in bed naked together when the officer's wife walked in on the two of them. Due to medical condition, she had to take heavy medication and she would sleep, and they would use that time to have relations. Well, in this case, she got out of it earlier than normal, and that's how she found out. And then it was on the news all over the place in our area. The officer was suspended from his position as a school resource officer. But he was not removed from the force. He was just transferred over to the patrol division. Details that I found out later stated that there was a firearm involved in that incident between the three of them. No rounds were fired, but it was at least brandished. These are very sick, deranged people. Anyways, at about 8 weeks, I was bailed out. The bail on my case was $3,000 or $30,000, but 10% is $3,000. Someone bailed me out. It wasn't my father, and I found out later that it was my mother, but it was a little too late by then. So I got out. The first thing I did was I got home and I got some evidence that I had. I was very fortunate to have saved this evidence, and what it was some communication, we'll say, between my ex and myself, where she admitted that she had, at the very least, had relations with the officer in question at least once, well, when she was 16, and this was before I had met her. I gave that information to my public defender. And the reason why I had a public defender at this point is because my attorney quit. He took $1,200 from me, showed it to court one time, and then said I was too bossy. He fired me. Sorry, the irony at that point. Anyways, the communication was sent from my attorney to the assistant district attorney who was prosecuting my case, who then turned it over to the state police, who opened up a criminal investigation. The problem is I was the only witness willing to testify, and because of my criminal situation, I was not a good witness. So the only thing that happened was the individual in charge, the officer involved, was charged with providing alcohol to a minor. He was, depending on who you ask, he was either fired or he was allowed to retire. I think he was allowed to retire based on the information I have since found out, that he got his pension, such. So, during my time out, I went through 3 public defenders. The third one I immensely respect. I respect all 3 of them, but I immensely respect my last one because he educated me in ways that I hope no one gets the education that I got. It's important to have. I went from 140 charges, mostly felonies, all the way down to 10 felonies. And the DA wanted me to plea out to 1 felony and 1 misdemeanor. I refused. And I was not budging, he was not budging. It came to the night before jury selection when my attorney read the case. And one day I might show you details from the case, but as of right now, I'm not comfortable with it. He read it and he called me and he said, "We got something here." Because, you know, you don't read that stuff. Nobody reads it, even though lives are on the line. They just want you to plea out, to take a deal quickly as possible, so that way they can move on to the next individual that is unfortunate enough to be in that situation. I said, "Okay, so what are you going to do about it?" And he said, "Let me make a phone call and I'll get back to you." He called me back about an hour later. He said that he got off the phone with the ADA. He said the ADA was going to do just 1 misdemeanor. He said that the ADA could not get any of the officers involved in my case to testify. The department that was involved did not want to proceed any further there. They wanted it gone. Basically, everyone was being dragged through the mud at this point. It was a complete show. And I said, I wanted to fight it. I wanted to fight it all the way to the end, but let's be realistic. Putting yourself at the hands of 12 or 6, depending on the type of charges involved, in many cases, it's not worth it. So I said, I'll plea out to 1 ticket. And said, "Okay, let me make a phone call. Call me back 10 minutes later. Deal." I went from 140 criminal charges, mostly felonies, down to 1 ticket. That's how weak of a case they had. And they knew it. They all knew it. But because DAs, they don't want a loss in the record. They'll take any deal they can get. But we'll talk about that in a future video. I don't want to get into it. I pled no contest, not guilty. No contest to that one ticket. And it doesn't matter because every single time it comes out, I mean, my record's expunged and I still have to talk about it. 10 years later. 10 long years later. I can't put it behind me. Anytime I deal with the federal government, I have to talk about it. Every time I look in the mirror, I see the scars that are on my face from when I got attacked in the jail. The issue with my case was the charges are domestic violence related, and inmates don't like that. They don't like child pedophiles or chomos. They don't like people who beat women or crimes against women. And I had a crime against a woman. And I professed my innocence. It's funny, everybody in jail is innocent, but among the inmates, we all know. You're probably guilty, more than likely guilty, but I continue to profess my innocence. I didn't do it. To this day, I profess my innocence. They had nothing, otherwise I'd be still in prison. But it doesn't matter. Had that news story not come out, it would have been a lot worse. Anyways, so because of that incident, my relationship with my mother is completely destroyed. I lost practically everything. I moved on. Because what else can you do? I'm still angry about it. I'm still upset. I tried to do positive things about it, but we'll talk about that one day. I went to school afterwards, 4-year institution. I regret it. I went for engineering, but, and this is the one thing that no one talks about, is a lot of students go for these, everyone thinks that, you know, you go to school for bullshit degrees. I don't mean to swear, pardon me. Bogus degrees. But no, a lot of students don't go for bogus degrees. A lot of students actually want, like, marketable degrees. The problem is a lot of them can't handle it. That's the difference there. And that's what happened to me. I went to school for engineering. But because of a couple of classes that I failed, I couldn't stay. So I had a choice to make. It was either get a different degree or drop out. And at that point, I was a junior. And I said, I'll just finish it out and get whatever I get. And whatever happens, happens. But my entire experience in school was just trash. It was not good. When I first went in for the orientation week, it was a sales pitch. The what is it that they said? The experience of a lifetime. the experience of a lifetime. Oh, it was an experience, all right. My time in jail is what woke me up, but you don't just wake up like you're fresh and ready to go. There's a hangover period. So if my time in jail is what woke me up, well, my time in college was the time when you're just out of bed and waking up and you see what's going on, but you still can't quite understand it. You know, I went to school and I was told that these people, like I said, the experience of a lifetime, you're going to make friends and all this stuff, and no, those people are elitist. Those people are not good people. And you're paying out the rear for that kind of experience. It's no wonder men are dropping out of school in droves, because you go there, you're instantly public enemy number one. You know, I never experienced the kind of bigotry, and it's not bigotry like racism, it's bigotry as in I'm better than you. And that's what I experienced there, is all, especially women. The women that went there, they had this I'm better than you attitude. I am better than you. I'll talk about it in a future video because it's awful what happened. Awful. These people they should be ashamed of themselves. They caused their own grief. Anyways, so I went for engineering. And I graduated with a communications degree after changing my major twice. And it was simply because that was the only degree that I could get that allowed me to graduate within 4 years. Anything science-based was 5 years at that point. I said, no, I can't. It's not that I won't, it's just I can't. My funding was going to dry up in 4 years. I couldn't I couldn't stay. It was just too expensive. So I graduated and got my degree, secured my credits, and that's the other thing that people don't talk about is if you don't graduate, you lose your credit at some point. It makes it worse. And then you got all these student loans and for nothing. So I graduated. I didn't attend my graduation. I didn't want to attend my graduation because I was so jaded at that point. I was so cynical about the whole experience that I wanted nothing to do with those people. And then went back home, started working, and at this point I was at my lowest. No, not lowest, but damn near close. And then I took a CompTIA A+ certification, put it on my LinkedIn profile, and I got an email for a job, believe it or not. And started in the tech field as a field support individual. I like to call it the hidden army. I'm the person that fixes things out in the field when something's broken. I don't build a website, even though I wanted to. I don't do that kind of stuff. Even though I have like computer knowledge, it's mostly mechanical. And I moved around quite a bit with that job. And then I got a new job because it got to a point where I knew I wasn't going to get too many raises. The organization was flat. There was only 6 positions between myself and the CEO, and it was a international company, actually. And by this point, I was living in California. And I got a new job, had to move. My territory quadrupled in size. And I basically almost had a nervous breakdown at work. I was driving home, and I wanted to drive off the cliff. And I knew at that point I had to do something, so I moved. I moved from California to Texas, and it had always been a dream of mine, but because of COVID, that dream didn't happen. I moved, and now I'm in Austin. And I say Austin in the general sense, not specifically in Austin, again, because I'm trying my hardest not to get doxxed, even though I know I'm going to at some point. It's just a matter of time. But anyways, so that's my story. And I will be going into details in it because I believe that there are a lot of lessons that can be learned from my story, specifically for younger men. But we all can learn a thing or two. Even old dogs can learn new tricks. Anyways, by sharing my story, I hope I inspired. I hope I inspired to share your story with us here at Sentinel Circle. I'm going to put my email into the description. Please send me an email. I'll read the email in the video. I'd like to read that stuff. And there are no judgments. We all make mistakes. It happens. We're only human. If you liked this video, please share it, like it, subscribe to the channel. But what I mean by sharing it is, like, I personally feel that it could be used to help someone, to show that, we're not alone in this. Because, like I said, it's not about me. It's not about just you. It's about the community as a whole. We need community. We need to look out for each other, because there's a lot of things that are happening, and an individual can make a change, but a group is what affects that change. And one other thing. Recently, a friend of mine told me that they felt they weren't being heard. I asked them why. They said that they asked people if they're willing to go get a cup of coffee. Well, he said that the cup of coffee wasn't just a cup of coffee. It was actually a cry for help. So what I'm trying to say is, if you find a friend, a brother, who's asking you, hey, do you want to go get a cup of coffee? You want to go to a movie? It may not just be a cup of coffee. It may not just be a movie. It may be a cry for help. This person may be on the verge of self-deletion. So please, if you see that, make time for that person. Don't let them suffer alone. And don't let them suffer in silence. Thank you, and I hope you have a great day. Be kind to one another. Be kind to yourself. Have a great day.